Chapter 67, Oath of Bahao Galpo, Together Losang Kaosang Gato. In previous chapter, we've completed the introduction of the whole structure of Wanfu Pavilion, which is the all-in-one building of 3 pavilions. Now let's return to elaborate the 41 serial tankas, Sitamani Tree Buddha's Jataka Tales, Bird Stories of Wish-Fulfilling Gem, Tree Buddha, 如意宝树佛本生记. The tankas were the tributes brought by the 7th Dalai Lama in 1750. Each painting of the tankas is 119 centimeters tall and 76 centimeters wide, which is about the same size as any other tankas. As the principal Buddha, Shakyamuni is depicted at the center, and the image of the 7th Dalai Lama himself is painted at the top of each tanka. This set of tanka is called Sitamani Tree Buddha's Jataka Tales, Bird Story of Wish-Fulfilling Gem Tree Buddha, 如意宝树佛本生记. As its name goes, it depicts exactly the scene that the 7th Dalai Lama himself was telling the stories of Buddha Shakyamuni's previous lives. Total 108 stories are illustrated through these 41 tankas. The stories of each tanka are written in real gold in Tibetan at the bottom. Firstly, who is the 7th Dalai? And secondly, what is tanka? And the number of types of tankas. We would suspend the subject of tanka until we later introduce the Banchan building number 23 on layout. Let's answer the first question in the first place. Who is the 7th Dalai? The Wanfu Pavilion number 24 on layout has direct connections with the 7th Dalai Lama, as there are 2 obvious clues. 1. The sandalwood was brought by him, and 2. He was depicted on the tankas, right? In the history of the Yonghe Palace, there have been 3 Talkus who are of great importance. The first one is the first chief Campbell of the Yonghe Palace, Changkya Ropai Roji. The third Zhangjia Hutaktu, who was the child friend of the Qianlong Emperor. The second one is the 7th Dalai Lama. The third one is the 6th Banchan Erdeni, whom we will introduce in subsequent chapters on the Banchan building. Of the 3 Talkus, the one who is inextricable to the Yonghe Palace is the 7th Dalai Lama. As mentioned, the sandalwood was delivered by him, so were the tankas. The first batch of teachers, 18 great luminaries of the Yonghe Palace, were as well as assigned by him. Selected by him from the Kudok and Kumi Zatang, the upper and the lower Tantric college of the 3 great monasteries of Lhasa, Gandan Monastery, Zebang Monastery, and the Sera Monastery. Even the 500 yellow peach-shaped hoods, Banxia, Pandita hood, for the first batch of students, which are equivalent to the scholars or master's caps on graduation, were given by him. The whole life of Losang Kaosang Gato, 1708 to 1750. The 7th Dalai Lama had been bumpy, tumultuous, and full of twists. Not until 1720, the 49th year and also the last year of the Kangxi Emperor, was he canonized. The 6th Dalai Lama, the excellent one preaching Buddhist doctrines and enlightening the sentient beings, at his 12. Please mark here that he was actually titled the 6th Dalai Lama, though in my previous narration he was called the 7th Dalai Lama Losang Kaosang Gato. As a matter of fact, he was titled the 6th Dalai Lama in the last year of the Kangxi Emperor. In addition, prior to him, there were another 2 6th Dalai Lamas. In other words, during that historical period, there were ever 3 sixth Dalai Lamas. In 1682, the 21st year of the Kangxi Emperor, the 5th Dalai Lama perfectly rested. He was the one mentioned in foregoing chapters who had advocated the Kala Chakra calendar, promoted medicine and pharmacy, and the integration of the yellow and red sects. The polity of Tibet during the Ming Dynasty was called Depa or Deshi, and it was carried to the Qing Dynasty titled another name called Gandan Potang, with Depa as the one who regimes essentially. Namely, the governmental mode is the same as the Depa of previous dynasty, but with supreme power. During the times of the 5th Dalai Lama, the one who substantially controlled Tibet was Depa Sangya Gacho. We've introduced the history of that times in chapters on History of Tibetan Buddhism of my course, History of Buddhism. The regent Depa Sangya Gacho had covered up the news of the death of the 5th Dalai Lama to the Qing government for 16 years, and he himself secretly identified an incarnation of the 5th Dalai Lama, Changyang Gacho, who is the renowned love-lorn monk. He then received the Changyang Gacho in Shigetse and asked the 5th Banchan to tonsure, hair cut off, to receive monastic ordination for Changyang Gacho. Well, the development of the situation was then tough, right? Since the identification on the lineage between the Dalai and the Banchan is mutually take turns. As long as the 5th Banchan proceeded the tonsure on the 6th Changyang Gacho, the legitimacy was substantiated. Besides, after the tonsure, Sangye Gacho did not submit the news to the Qing government, which led to the pseudo-circumstance that the Qing government had been thinking the Dalai had been the 5th all along. The polity of Gandan Pozhang was a union-ruling mode of politics and religion. Hiding Changyang Gacho in Nakaze Monastery, Sangye Gacho simultaneously issued orders to public on behalf of the 5th Dalai Lama. In 1696, the 35th year of the Kangxi Emperor, Kangxi made an expedition to battle against Ge-dan. It is known that in the whole life of the Kangxi Emperor, he had battled Ge-dan 3 times. During the expedition of this round, he learned from the captives that the 5th Dalai Lama had been dead for several years. Upon the truth was revealed, Sangye Gacho had no other way but to present himself to Beijing to report the truth. It was stated in this way: the 5th Dalai Lama has been in perfect rest for 16 years, but the incarnation, the 6th Dalai Lama, has been found, and he has been already 15 years old. Hearing the news, the Kangxi Emperor was incensed at the deception. However, he had to approve reluctantly based on the political situation at that time. Why? Because the Kangxi Emperor was battling against Moxi Mongolia, Balad or Ulat Mongolia, Moxi Mongol, fiercely, and he had no spare time and energy to free himself to take care of Tibet. Thus, it had to be what it was. Thus, the Kangxi Emperor superficially was fine with whatever Sangye Gacho said. Say, 15 years have been passed upon the incarnation. What's more, the Kangxi Emperor designated the second Zhangjia who took to the previous life of the third Zhangjia to make a long trek to Lhasa to attend the enthronement rites of the 6th Dalai Lama, Changyang Gacho, which officially admitted the legitimacy of Changyang Gacho. Firstly, the tonsure was implemented by the 5th Banchan rite. the identification procedure is legal. Secondly, the second Zhangjia attended enthronement rites, which officially state the legitimacy. This is the first one of the 6th Dalai Lama. In the 44th year of the Kangxi Emperor, 1705, La Zhangkan, lord of Horshat tribe of Mongolia, led the troops into Lhasa. He courted the Qing government to dethrone Changyang Gacho, with the excuses that Changyang Gacho preferred libertine amusement to religion. Well, we may in a way imagine how the life of Changyang Gacho was from his love letters he composed. Thus, La Zhangkan ordered to arrest Changyang Gacho and deport him to Beijing City under escort. Namely, Changyang Gacho was condemned as a fake Taoku due to his dissipation. Then La Zhanghan himself thrown another incarnation named Yeshe Gacho as the 6th Dalai Lama. In the 45th year of the Kangxi Emperor, 1706, Changyang Gacho died mysteriously on the way he was escorted to Beijing. With respect to his death, there had been no lack of legends. So had his whole life. We cannot know today whether he died or not at that time. Consequently, La Zhangkan asserted the incarnation he selected as 6th Dalai Lama. As said, the battle Manchu Qing and Horshat against Moxi Mongolia, Urad or Ulat Mongolia, Moxi Mongol, was going on hotly, right? There is no spare time to care for Tibet. What's more, Horshat was one of the most brave and intrepid tribes of the Moxi Mongolia. Thus, the Kangxi Emperor cannot declare war to all the tribes of the Moxi Mongolia. With the consideration of political strategy, the Kangxi Emperor decided to comfort the Horshat tribe of Mongolia, right? The tribes that the Kangxi Emperor was battling against were the Zhongur tribe and the Tongur tribe. He thus deployed his political step to comfort the Horshat tribe. With this political deployment being carried out, the Kangxi Emperor then agreed to admit this 6th Dalai Lama as well. 5 years later, the Kangxi Emperor issued a decree to officially confer Yeshe Gacho, the 6th Dalai Lama. Therefore, he became the second 6th Dalai Lama that the Qing government ratified. Let's stop here and wrap up a little bit. The first 6th Dalai, Changyang Gacho, was ratified since the second Zhangjia who took to attended his enthronement. The second 6th Dalai, Yeshe Gacho, was officially enthroned by imperial decree. However, the first 6th Dalai Lama had been influential in the Tibetan area. Why? Firstly, since his tenure was carried out by the 5th Banchan, which compiled with the authentic identification of master and apprentice. He had the traditional and admitted inheritance. Secondly, you, La Zhanghan, from a tribe of Mongolia, militarily occupied Lhasa and declared to enthrone your own Taoku. This behavior was not acceptable for the other Mongolian tribes in Qinghai. This was just ridiculous. Therefore, the action of the enthronement of Yeshe Gacho aroused the other Mongolian tribes. Why? It is quite understandable to interpret by quoting a classical allusion of Han Chinese. What is your plan? To control the political situation by intimidating the emperor? This was apparently infeasible and impossible. No one had stood out to be against the decision on enthroning Yeshe Gacho, the 6th Dalai Lama, proposed by La Zhanghan. Why? Because the whole Moxi Mongolia had the pressure exerted by the Qing government They kept silent. You wanted to enthrone your own 6 Dalai. Sure, you may do whatever you intended to. You may play on your own, just for fun. But as long as the emperor conferred Yexi Gato, the 6th Dalai Lama, the nature of it changed as it mattered on legitimacy. The fact that other tribes read was a sign someone intended to control the situation using the emperor. And also all the tribes had faith on the yellow sect. Thus a great disturbance was triggered among the religious communities of both Mongolia and Tibet. Yeshgato was opposed violently by the tribes of both Qinghai and many other tribes of Mongolia. Not only the military leaders opposed him, but also the monasteries of Yellow Sect of the whole Tibet. Memorials submitted from Qinghai, Mongolia, and Tibet to claim that they would never ever admit the legitimacy of Yexi Gato. With such circumstances, the conferrer on the 6th Dalai by the Kangxi Emperor trapped himself into a dilemma. Right. The Kangxi Emperor agreed the case so as to pacify the Lazanghan of the Hoshet tribe. Nevertheless, you have to step out of the trap with some excuse. The senior monks of the Yellow Sect, also known as Glug, were figures equipped with keen political mind, and they soon smelled the unpredictability and the volatility of political situation. In 1710, the 49th year of the Kangxi Emperor, the senior lamas of the 3 monasteries, Gandan, Japon, and Sera of Tibet, inwardly allied and secretly headed to Litang to look for next incarnation. They managed to find him. The very one was Laso Khalsang Gato. Upon finding this child candidate, they did not declare the news on their own, but asked the Necheng monastery to announce the finding of this other incarnation as the 6th Dalai. This very Necheng monastery is a temple of distinctive importance, since Bahai Gapo, chief mundane Dhammapala of Tibet, is enshrined here. We've introduced in previous chapters that there are 2 types of Dhammapalas, mundane and supramundane. Dhammapalas of mundane are the Dhamma protector of this world. The Necheng monastery is the mother monastery of Bahai Gapo, chief mundane Dhammapala. The sorcerer, as a spokesman of Bahai Gapo, has been living in the Necheng monastery all the time. Thus, the senior lamas of the 3 monasteries secretly found Losang Khalsang Gato and identified him, the incarnation child, as Dalai Lama. And the identification was published by the sorcerer as a spokesman of Bahai Gapo, which made the matter authoritative and secret. Hence, the identification had been significantly influential among the Tibetan Buddhism. Due to the identification of the incarnation and such a way of announcement, which meant the announcement made by the Natang monastery, Losang Khalsang Gato was immediately ratified by all the tribal lords of Qinghai and Mongolia. And then Losang Khalsang Gato was invited by them to reside and be served in Kamba Chambaling, beside the Qinghai Lake. The situation was quite different to have Losang Khalsang Gato enshrined in Kamba Chambaling, as it was the mother monastery of Master Tsongkhapa. Namely, he was worshipped directly in the founder's temple, which was the expression of an official recognition. Thus, during that historical period, 2 Dalai Lamas appeared in Tibet simultaneously, Losang Khalsang Gato and Yexi Gato. Luckily, same mistakes had not been made twice. As said, the Kangxi Emperor had been searching for a ladder to step out of the trap, right? He realized that he made a mistake on conferring Yexi Gato. What to do then? Here came the letter. By then, the political situation was quite clear, wasn't it? As the tribes had found the new incarnation, the letter was just perfectly ready. Therefore, the Kangxi Emperor issued an imperial decree to approve Losang Khaosang Gyatso, the sixth Dalai Lama, which meant Yeshe Gyatso was deposed. This is the whole story regarding the seventh Dalai Lama mentioned at the very beginning of this chapter. As a matter of fact, he was conferred the incarnation as the sixth Dalai Lama. In this way, 3 reincarnation children arose till the case was settled down. Changyang Gyatso, Yeshe Gyatso, and Losang Khaosang Gyatso. In 1720, the Qing troops resumed Lhasa by expelling the Dzungar tribe from Tibet. Losang Khaosang Gyatso was then escorted by the Qing troops to Lhasa to proceed the enthronement, which marked the official identification of the third sixth Dalai in the history of Tibet. So during the Kangxi dynasty, 3 sixth Dalai Lamas had been conferred. In other words, this time Losang Khaosang Gyatso was officially enthroned in Tibet. However, what about the Yeshe Gyatso? He was escorted to Beijing, but no further records were available. Both Changyang Gyatso and Yeshe Gyatso had an enigma ending of life. But which generation should Losang Khaosang Gyatso be in the end? Right? This was an embarrassing question, as the previous 2 sixth Dalai Lamas had after all been conferred by the Qing government. Right? And could the third one still be titled sixth? So this detailed title had never been utilized of all the imperial decrees regarding. Only Dalai Lama was used for every imperial decree, and neither sixth nor seventh was employed. Guess how many years did this ambiguousness last? It had been lasted for 60 years. During the 60 years, this issue had never been mentioned. The length of 60 years is one whole completion of the Chinese sexagenary cycle. It was suspended till the 45th of the Qianlong Emperor, 1780. The Qianlong Emperor was quite liberal to fault. He started to advocate for the policy of treating the imperial clan kindly and maintain the royal family harmony. Just let bygones be bygones. In 1780, the 45th year of the Qianlong Emperor, the Qing government officially proclaimed the ratification on Changyang Gyatso, the affectionate monk, to be the sixth Dalai Lama. His love poem echoed, "The moment frozen, I hoist the winged horse." As Losang Khaosang Gyatso, who was conferred as the sixth Dalai by the Kangxi Emperor, was eventually conferred as the seventh Dalai Lama. This is just a beginning of the turbulent life of the Losang Khaosang Gyatso, the seventh Dalai Lama. His bumpy life would be continuously carried on. We will introduce in the next chapter.